Roger McGool is here with Jed Dougherty, data scientist at Dataiku. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Why is the final mile such a challenge for so many organizations who are working on AI and machine learning?
Really is. There's a few different reasons that I see very regularly. One is obviously around governance. So basically the ability to continue to track the quality of that model over time. Something a lot of people don't think about. Oftentimes, when you're building a data set, or you're putting together some data set that you're going to build a model with afterwards, you have it, it's nice and labeled. Okay, great. I build my model that one time, but I've never thought about how I'm going to keep track in the future of how well it's actually doing. How do I get the information of the ground truth to compare my model against? It's a tricky feedback loop that you have to build into your workflow, and it's hard to do. It gets harder either the more rare the thing you're trying to predict is, or the longer it takes for you to be proven right or wrong. So if I'm trying to predict loans or something like that, will somebody default on a loan? You might not know for 10 years if your prediction was correct or not. So how do you feed that back into the model? Very challenging question.
Just to follow up on that, it also seems like production is like a new thing for a lot of analysts, because in the past they were just building something that was kind of one-off.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So that's even like at a simpler level is, okay, I built something that worked one time when I ran all the cells in my Jupyter notebook in the correct order. How the heck do I turn this into something that somebody's going to rely on, a large corporation's going to rely on for their revenue every day? Huge gap there. Right. And there's a lot of tools being developed right now, kind of taking a couple different approaches to bridging that gap. One thing that we've seen a lot of lately is work on top of Git specifically. So, all right, I've built something in a notebook. I now want to productionize this somehow. And it's like, oh, we're going to make another layer of complication on top of Git, which is already incredibly complicated. You're isolating the number of people who could ever use this kind of tool down to people who already get Git, which is like 10 of them. Then minus that, you learn another tool on top of that. The other way that we see folks going, and this is the way that Dataiku has been kind of pushing for, is making sure that you're working within a framework as you're building the model that is already prepared to push out whatever you've created into a production environment. So instead of building in isolation and then figuring out some way, the tool you're working in has that built in.
Right. What are some other considerations that might be overlooked by people trying to move forward?
So a lot of people, when they're looking at how to judge, the number one question that I get these days is, how do I know if my model is good, right? Should I just take R2 score? Should I take AUC? What does it mean for a given model to know if it's good or not? And I think the actual best way to decide whether or not a model is good is to have the business interest directly plugged into that decision. So instead of saying my accuracy is very high, right, you should instead say, how much money do I gain from each prediction or lose? If I can't answer whether I'm gaining or losing money from a given prediction, then I shouldn't put that model into production. I shouldn't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. So going into production, what are the kind of options for deployment, for moving from that development stage to getting things out there?
So there's kind of two different ways that models get productionized right now. One is real time. So this means every time a new action happens or a new record gets collected, that record gets sent to some model and it gets scored one at a time. The other way would be batch scoring. So here I have some model that I've built, and every night or every week or every so often, it takes all of the records that have been collected, scores them all, and gives you a response. Based on what your needs are, you're going to be either deploying as a batch process or in real time. For real time, the hot thing right now is deploying API endpoints across a Kubernetes cluster, for example. This way you have huge scalability, you have failover, you have the ability to upgrade each individual node one at a time, so you can always have 100% uptime. That's the fun stuff. Dataiku makes that as easy as a click of a button. But there's also a lot of roll your own kind of tools to do that type of thing.
Right. So since you work with a lot of companies that are doing this kind of AI, you probably have developed a kind of a checklist of best practices. What would you say those are?
So I think I've sort of alluded to a few of them there, but one is understand how you're going to track your model's quality. Have a real game plan in place when you deploy your model. 2, understand what value your model is bringing from a revenue standpoint, not from an accuracy standpoint. And then 3, make sure that your model can be updated and redeployed seamlessly so that your business doesn't have downtime each time you need to change something.
Mm-hmm. So, given this background, you got people working on stuff. How does something like Dataiku help people get this work done?
So Dataiku as a end-to-end platform allows people to work within the tool to build out either batch process or API endpoints, models, and deploy each of them seamlessly, along with the monitoring to ingest data through that feedback loop I was talking about, and redeploy across your cluster without any downtime. Dataiku also provides a lot of features around tracking your model's quality, not just giving you a single score like accuracy or a single score like precision, recall, anything like that, but a wide variety of tools to really understand how your model is doing. When I'm talking about revenue, we even provide the ability to include a cost matrix so that you can understand the dollar amount that your model is going to be helping or hurting you.
Great. Now, in the world of AI, of course, one of the things that people often talk about is how ethics, fairness, and bias and so forth fits into the equation. What is the kind of Dataiku take on all that?
We believe that ethics and fairness and removing bias come through transparency of the development process of models themselves, as well as through collaboration on those processes. The development process, just like a model shouldn't be a black box, the development process of that model shouldn't be either. And it shouldn't be something that only one person, that genius in the room, has built everything and he or she is the only one who knows how it works. Having a tool like Dataiku that provides openness and collaboration across your entire company makes it so that you know your model, when it's put into place, when it's released into the world, has had many eyes on it, and it's not reflecting the inherent biases or ethical dilemmas of a single human being.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you.